Hello, so it's the 9th of November. We lose track of time, don't we? And I wanted to give you some more update, and I hope that you're not tired of this and too fed up and you don't want to hear any more. But it is useful, interesting. I believe so anyway. There's some names I can't give, and that sounds like always trying to be exciting. I'm not trying to be exciting. I genuinely can't. But what I can tell you is that what you've read regarding the blockchain is accurate. What I can tell you is that it's highly likely that Pennsylvania will be taken away from Biden and given to Trump. That is 20 votes, college votes. Something like 450,000 ballots in question. I can't tell you the name, but I can tell you there are two United States generals who are operating to uncover or clear out the situation regarding corruption in the election. There are federalized National Guard, so not loyal to the governor, but loyal to the federal government in 16 states in the United States. 16. I don't want you to think of lorry loads of troops all with their engines running, waiting to jump out and arrest people. But I do want you to try and think on, please, is specialist teams with very advanced electronic equipment operating in 16 states. When we talk about blockchain and blockchain technology, even people in the say the alternative media, the truth media, don't perhaps grasp what it actually means and how it works. If you ask somebody about it, they'll hit the word quantum. They'll say quantum banking, quantum technology, and then it drops off because they don't really know. What I want to tell you is that all of the legitimate ballots were communicating in real time to satellites and on the ground electronic equipment. There are two bases in the United States where this is being operated from, and they can actually sit in real time, and they were sitting in real time, watching all the legitimate ballots. Yeah, millions, yes, millions, moving about and checking. So they actually knew how many ballots were real. And although the court won't accept that, the court's going to have to authorize people to painstakingly go in and recount them. I can tell you that those recounts will be done under armed guard. There will be armed agents actually overseeing the recounts. And so I have no doubt, based on the information that I've been given, that Pennsylvania will be removed from the Biden count and given to the Trump count. Now, that leaves us with Nevada, Wisconsin, North Carolina, possibly Michigan. Now, those states, that actually might not be so much about the corrupt votes, but more about the corrupt individuals. Something like 30 or 60 delivery drivers who are prepared to go with Giuliani into court and testify that they had pressure put on them to deliver late ballots or to alter certain things. That's a heck of a lot of people to go in. The joke's already going around about, the guys who fought in the Civil War, who were voting, or the War of Independence, or any of those other wars. And to a certain extent, I'm not an American, but I know that to a certain level that's always gone on. But it's the sheer volume, the sheer magnitude of thousands of dead people apparently voting. So I've got situations with that which is very easy to ratify, because even if a court can't understand anything, if it sees 500 votes from dead people, then it will have no problem in striking out 500 votes. Well, 500 votes not going to make a huge difference, but we're talking thousands. We're talking about loads of ballots being dropped at set times, electronically dropped. And I can tell you that the US military, and you remember I did quite an impassioned statement. I think many of you did like that. I was not playing to the audience. I don't do that. I was playing to the military audience, shall we say, because they're the guys that have the power to make or break this. They really do. And I have one note of caution. We would say that the Democrats or those behind them, I don't want to attack the Democratic Party. That's not constitutional. I want to attack the people who are manipulating the party, the manipulators, the puppet masters. They're not stupid. I'm sure they're not stupid. So they must know that the other side, the Trump team, is going to fight back. And there's one possibility, crazy as it sounds, but let's run with it, that they believe they can manipulate the Supreme Court. Now, I know that many people jump up and down and shout and scream and that can't happen. But let's just think about it. It is the Supreme Court that are going to make all these decisions. It is the Supreme Court that have got to hear these cases. It's the Supreme Court that will have the power to basically order votes to be taken from one side and added to the other. So maybe the bad guys think they've got enough people in the Supreme Court to ensure that it all stops there. On the other hand, maybe they don't. They're not that clever. Maybe they just thought that the momentum of this with the media coverage would be enough to knock everything over. I mean, they're saying now that the First Lady wants to divorce President Trump unless he gives up. They're saying that Eric and Don Jr. want him to give up. And I know for a fact that that's an absolute lie. In fact, I think even the First Lady tweeted out that this was wrong, and the other family members. So look how the media are trying to isolate Trump as this madman on his own, refusing to listen to reason, and that we should paint him as that. That's the picture they're trying to put. The reality is there is a large military operation, and I don't mean soldiers with guns. I'm talking about technology involved in this. And the big question for the public is why? And I wanted to give you that answer. We've had 4 years or so. Trump's had 4 years, but we, the people, have had 4 years where President Trump has been attacked left, right, and center. And the vast majority of the public had no clue and thought that Trump was an idiot. And that basically what the newspaper said was true. Now, if Trump was to steamroller things through and do this, that, and the other and get another 4 years, we'd have another 4 years where the public didn't know the truth. So what I think we're coming towards is a situation where this allows the public to see the manipulation that's taken place. And the only way they're going to believe it is literally at court level, because these people only believe the court. They're not going to believe President Trump. But they will believe what the Supreme Court says. And if the Supreme Court holds true and says there has been the most massive fraud on the greatest level that the United States has ever seen, and that we are ordering A to Z, whatever that will be, boom, 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 these things have got to happen, then the public suddenly realizes that there's been a massive plot to remove the president, and that calls into question the impeachment and the Russian hoax, and all of these things suddenly all fall into one little box which says stop President Trump. Then it hopefully means you'll get 4 years where the public will no longer have the confidence in the media or any of these other what President Trump calls special interest groups. He's choosing his words carefully. We'll call it satanic forces, because we don't need to be as careful as the president. So I'm still very hopeful. My words hold true that as long as the people around the president do what they said they were going to do, this will all work out. Now, before this election was called, I'd said to Becky, I expect Trump to get 300 college votes. Well, those in the know in the United States have said to me, no, it's 290. It's 290. He's got 290. I'll go with 290. What I can definitely tell you is that the President of the United States is today President Trump and will be President Trump, providing those elements of state, legislature, of the Constitution don't bend and buckle. Providing they do what they're supposed to do, there is absolutely no way that Joe Biden will be the guy who puts his hand on the Bible on the 20th of January and say, yes, thank you very much, inaugurate me. One final bit of news. Fox, who can't decide which their side they're supporting at the moment, they're all over the place, is basically saying they're going to call it for the president in April of 2021. In other words, their worst case scenario is that the law courts are going to take from November 20 to April 21. I don't hold with that. I think that's far too long. The military information I've received is that November 26, your Thanksgiving, if you're an American, should be quite a pivotal moment. It doesn't mean it's all going to be sorted, but there should be quite a lot of under the table or out of the table material that have taken place. There is so much evidence of fraud and corruption, but there are some very gifted men and women with the military who are, as we speak, providing material in a civilian context. In other words, so that lawyers can take that information and use it in court, that there is an immense chain of command. But the problem for the president is that the support is quite one-sided at the moment. He's in a war room, and he's got all these guys and women around him who are supporting him. But he needs to be connected with the people, the 70-odd million that voted for him officially. And of course, we know it's a lot more than that, because we know a lot of Biden votes were flipped and they need to come back. But, the president is loved. And it's going to be very difficult, I think, in the weeks ahead, where people are, celebrating, Trump's this and Trump's a bad man and that. And then, if, as things hold true, the Supreme Court comes back and says massive corruption, massive, and we've done the calculations and President Trump is the president for 4 years. But those people that have come out and opened their big mouth and said this, said that, and all the rest of it, it's going to be a shock. But it's going to be a shock for the collective, or the ordinary, decent Democrat voters, the people that voted for whatever reason. That's why it has to come from the Supreme Court, because both sides will claim the election was stolen. Trump supporters now, and then in the future, those who voted for the Democrats. But that's why it must come from the courts. And the established media will have to have a reckoning of some sort. I don't know what that will be. But early days, don't be disheartened by all of the nonsense coming out from the mainstream. I'm not talking through a third party. I have had direct information, making it very clear what's happening and what is planned to happen, and it is at a general level. I mean, literally, it is, and I said, didn't I, that these people don't want certain commanders in chiefs. They're not going to have it. 9/11 was the biggest fundamental shock to good men and women who were in the know, and there was no turning back from that. So if people think that President Trump is just going to go quietly, that's not the case. The only way that this election can be lost by President Trump is if the people around him abandon him. That's the point. Now, I'm not seeing any sign of that. I'm not seeing any sign of that at all. And there is an army around him. And it'll be very interesting to see it play out. So I just wanted to give you that feedback. So we know, I say we, I mean they know, but they passed it on to me. The number of votes that are fake, broadly, they know exactly the number of votes that are real. They have intelligence operations going on the ground. They have them up in space. I mean, you've been taught. I mean, I think you will know of Hammer and Hammer and Scorecard, which is a software program that manipulates elections. And I think what must be very difficult for very honest, genuine American people is to understand that the CIA created Hammer and Scorecard so they could artificially affect elections in other countries. I mean, that's probably a shock for many decent people. What, the United States of America faking elections in South America or where have you? Yes, that's right. The CIA do it all the time. And so what happened, this is the first time that Hammer and Scorecard was used on the American people. And they must think that the military are stupid. So Hammer and Scorecard was the program that we're talking about here that was used. And what I can tell you is that 1 hour before election machines were supposed to come on, a patch was activated, and you know that was triggered all the fake. In other words, votes for Trump were literally just electronically switched to Biden. So a court might hear that, but a court's going to want physical evidence. So that's why they've got to go in and physically recount them under armed guard. Literally, armed guard. They've got to physically recount them. And I think we'll see some very interesting things happening. If it goes the way it ought to go, we should see the bad guys jumping ship very quickly. Very quickly. And on a final note, God bless him, I don't think Biden had a clue. I think Joe Biden thinks he's won fair and square. Now, Kamala Harris probably knows the truth. After all, she was slated to be the president within just a few weeks of Biden supposedly taking office and then retiring because he's sick. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know. And what will be more devastating to Biden will be the fact that this huge operation was fake. He didn't win it. His personality, Joe Biden's dynamic personality, didn't win the election. It was won through fake means. And when he realizes that he's been used as a sucker and a fall guy, I think he'll be totally devastated and possibly just retire from politics completely. And then the caballing group who manipulated all this, you know, we've always talked about courts martials, haven't we? We've always talked about that, courts martials. Could be. Right. So I'm sorry I can't give you names. I'm sorry I can't give you any more than that, but I didn't sign an NDA. Nobody said to me, you know, non-disclosure. They just said to me, Simon, we trust you. We're going to give you this information, but you can't give specifics, but you do perhaps need to give some help, some encouragement to the American people and the people around the world, you know, that it's not all lost. And we just trust you not to, you know, give the ins and outs of the details, because we're not yet ready for the other side to know the full amount. But I'm not at all worried. Providing these people do what they say they do, I'm not at all worried. So thank you very much for your time, and you know, let's just keep there and see what happens.